Hi, it's Friday. That means it's another edition of the Zogby Report, real and unscripted. My son Jeremy and I are here ready to take on the issues of the day, always civilly conscious of each other's points of view and feelings, and hopefully providing for you an interesting and civil conversation. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. That's the name of the game.
That's the name of the game. Yep, we're hopefully showing the way. So I think there's two things to talk about today. One, obviously, is the State of the Union message. And was it important? Was it a game changer? Was it meaningful? And the other thing, in just some of the time remaining, I'd like to talk about Florida. Because interestingly, of all the states for the president to travel to, after arguably a very powerful State of the Union message, is he went down to Florida, where Democrats have not been winning. In fact, they've been getting trounced. So those sound okay to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So the State of the Union. So let me begin by saying that the stakes were high for Joe Biden, not only on the issue of whether he was going to run or could run for the presidency again, but how he would be able to take on a new majority in the House of Representatives, and would he be relevant or just a lame duck in the 2 years that remain? I'm going to suggest to you that really no different than a lot of pundits out there, the president declared his relevancy and at the same time pretty much resolved the mystery. He's running in 2024, and that's clear. And I'm going to say that he gave himself a pretty good jump start for the following reasons. Okay, no special order, but number one, he was able to give context to what he's actually accomplished in the last 2 years, and accentuated all of that with bipartisanship. So he did talk about infrastructure. He did talk about jobs created. He did talk about progress on climate change. He did talk about any number of real, genuine, tangible accomplishments. And at the same time, was able to convey to the American people, these are works in progress, which meant two things. One is you're going to start feeling them. You're going to start seeing the constructions in infrastructure. You're going to start feeling, progress on inflation, on the economy. The other thing, though, was that notion of let me finish the job. Let me finish the job. That providing a solid base for someone who does want to run again, by saying, we had a really good 2 years, and now this is what I'd like to do the next two and beyond. The second reason I gave him high marks is that he looked to the future. And instead of just leaving folks with, hey, I said I was going to be a transitional figure, a bridge to the next generation. Well, I've done it. Thank you very much. Goodbye. He laid out a bold agenda. This is a State of the Union message. Not a lot, not much of it will get accomplished, especially with the changing political dynamic in Washington. On the other hand, he laid out a vision, and a vision that was consistent and made sense with his first 2 years. And so he did that, but he also did it with a theme that played to his strength. His strength is, we've always felt, is Uncle Joe, the kind of guy you'd be sitting next to on the subway, the kind of guy that you'd run into in an Irish bar. He laid it all out in very personal terms, not simply billions upon billions or trillions, but I've got your back. Not only big, but small. Your hotel bill, when you get your hotel bill and there are unexpected service charges. When you get your cable bill and there are unexpected service charges. When you get screwed day in, day out, not simply by the big things, but the little things as well. I'm aware of those. I'm like you. And I thought that that was a very good contrast, particularly against maybe somebody like Donald Trump. Um, and then the third and the final thing that he did in the speech was, I think that he, on a very personal level, answered the question, do you think I'm too old? Well, look at me. I'm not too old. I'm 80. I shuffle a little bit, make some gaffes. I've slowed down a little bit. Frankly, those of us who've known him for years, he could afford to slow down a little bit. This guy's been hyper. But I know that next holidays coming around, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're all going to be getting holiday cards from the White House saying, thank you very much for your role in making me look even better than I set out to look. By heckling him and by his heckling them back. And then finally, and what I think was a stroke of genius and at the same time impromptu, when he said to the Republicans, I know you want to cut Social Security. That's on the agenda. Oh, they yelled back, but he said, I'll show it to you. Rick Scott put it in his plan. Let's all stand up for seniors now. Of course, what are they going to do but stand up? I think he showed that he's an 80-year-old guy who's in command. He's the guy to beat. And so at running the risk of not being critical of him, and I always can be, there are a number of things to really make me very angry about Joe Biden. But I got to tell you, objectively, I thought he hit a home run in the State of the Union and changed the conversation moving forward. And that's it. We can end the podcast right here if you'd like.
We could.
Yeah.
We could. And that would be in line with the State of the Union, right?
All right, fire away.
Well, I mean, okay, so if a legendary baseball player shows up to a stadium and hits a home run, but very few people are in the audience, did he really hit a home run? To take an old-fashioned riddle and make it applicable to this situation, the Nielsen data shows that only 27 million Americans tuned in, which is the lowest in 30 years. So I'm sure Nielsen data has data going back before that, but my understanding is this was a record low in 30 years. And so one has to ask, why is that? Why this one? Why not the one before? Why not the one before? Why not the one before? But this one. And I think it's because, now look, make no mistake about it. Biden can deliver a great speech, a good speech. I think there are moments when he fumbles, but I think there are moments when he turns it on and he connects, and he has that ability. But there's only so much connecting you can do when you have a historic low audience, and you have to ask why. Why is that? And so, I mean, right off the bat, another data point that we have to dissect is, on the face, the BLS and the jobs reports are telling us that there's 500,000 new jobs, but these are massive reports, right? There's the establishment survey, there's the household survey, and when you really dig in, that's when you start seeing what's really going on. And so full employment is in the negative. That's not good. Part-time jobs are on the rise. That's not good. A lot of times, and I've said this before, I'm reminding folks, when these jobs reports come out, oftentimes there are jobs unaccounted for. We saw that the last round, but most of the time there are part-time jobs and temp jobs that are created, which I think is more indicative of what's going on in the economy. So less full-time jobs. We saw the tech sector slashed, right, over the last quarter. That's going to continue. That could very well happen in other sectors where full-time employment is slashed. We see a continued rise of part-time jobs. That's a very not good situation for the economy. What are some other signals that are going on where Americans are having a rough time? Since 2009, the Great Recession, we've seen the largest number of auto repos, people who have stopped making payments on their automobile loans and the cars being repossessed. We have seen APR rates on credit cards average around 20%. Going back over the last month, there are signals that the American consumer, for the time being, may be tapped out. So that's quantitative data. I'm going to put this together with some qualitative data. Weeks ago, like I buy a lot of bottled water, and then eventually when the mound piles up of plastic bottles, I say, all right, well, I got to recycle these and get them away from where they're piling up. And so I went to the grocery store to do that, and there was a woman who wasn't too happy that I had as many bags as I had, but she had just as many too. And so she was just talking to me, and she was saying that she was pulling together her life with 4 part-time jobs. Okay. Hence why, it was important to her to get that money. But I suspect that more and more Americans are working 2-3 jobs to make ends meet. And that's the real story. That's the real backdrop. There's a lot of other economic indicators that are not good. Above all of this, the Federal Reserve, and look, and I've said this for many months, the Federal Reserve is caught between a rock and a hard place. If they lower interest rates too much, they could spell disaster, right? That could unleash inflation even more. But right now they are tightening the money supply. So they are raising interest rates, which is tightening the money supply. So people have less money. There's less money floating around in the system. There are more part-time jobs to make ends meet, more car repossessions, auto repossessions, and potentially a tapped out consumer. And I think that that's the backdrop to why millions and millions and millions of Americans decided not to tune in, because we know that in these speeches that a lot of it has to be rosy and optimistic. And I don't think Americans right now want to hear that. I'm not saying they want to hear gloom and doom, but I think that the reason why this was a historic low in terms of viewership, according to the Nielsen data, is because most Americans don't believe that Biden is the guy. And, a lot of the polls are showing, and this is not just, likely voters of both parties or all 3 affiliations, but even among Democrats, you're seeing polls come out that say it's time for somebody new. And so that would be my filling in on the last, not last night, but a few nights ago, the State of the Union.
Well, you raise really important points, and none of them I can disagree with. The fact of the matter is the speech had to be upbeat because Jeremiah the prophet would not be a good candidate. The sky is falling, doom and gloom. We're all going to hell. This is at a point where a leader has got to document progress, got to document that he's tried something, got to document that there will be some improvement down the road. You'll feel it. On the other hand, to be sure, hey, 30%, only 30% feel the country is headed in the right direction. We're still at a solid 70%, give or take a couple of points, say the country's headed on the wrong track. That's not only in and of itself an important barometric reading, but obviously includes a lot of Democrats to get to 70%. a lot of Democrats and a lot of independents, you
Yeah.
know, in those numbers. By the same token, uh, a guy can also get up there and say, "Hey, look, I tried and I give up." But I think what was most important was not only the first two pieces of it. You know,
Hmm.
um, the the first piece I said where he gave a context for running again. The second piece, a context for the accomplishments that he's given. But the fact that he took it right to the opposition and said, "What are you going to do that's better? Now, are you going to investigate my son?" He didn't say that. But are you going to investigate me? Are you going to investigate the China balloon? Are you going to investigate? Are you going to investigate? Are you going to, is that an agenda that moves the country forward? And I think what he did was he offered a choice. Here's what I've done, and there is some progress. And Americans, you're going to start to feel it, versus, do you really want to go through all these investigations for vengeful purposes? And I think in that sense, he really put it to the Republican opposition.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the big question here, cloaked around all of this, is, and we're already looking to 2024,
Mhm.
is Biden in a position to defeat, whether it's Trump or DeSantis? And that's an interesting battle right now.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of polls are showing it's very tight. And, but the key thing to look at on that side is voter share. So don't look at the percentage of whether Trump is up 42 to 38 over DeSantis, or it's 44 or 44 or whatever. The fact is DeSantis was down in the teens, and
Mhm.
now he's up in, some polls mid 30s, high 30s, low 40s, right up there with Trump. That's called increased voter share. That means the trend is his friend and that he's on the rise. And although Trump has a dedicated following with intense support among those who rate him favorable, his very favorable rating is very high. But right now, DeSantis is on the rise. That's an interesting, battle going on. Whoever emerges from that, we don't know. It's too early. But the question is Biden the guy that can defeat the Republicans? And are independents going to side with Biden, or are they going to go with the Republican of choice? And that's the real question. And so that's why I think that, and I we've talked about this before. I think there's reason to be concerned for Biden in terms of being able to pull off getting the nomination. And I'm seeing all kinds of signals. We go back to July, and the New York Times, two times and back to back within 1 week, the headline was Biden's too old. That's the message. Now there's the classified documents. The Hunter Biden laptop story is now a story. It's no longer Russian conspiracy disinformation. There was a laptop. We don't know what was on the laptop. And then the bombshell this week, the institution within himself, Seymour Hersh, has now come out and said that it was an American operation in terms of who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And that if you go to his Substack, Cy Hersh, he gets into all of the details and all of the evidence, and he even shows a clip from live television where Biden was being asked, "What are you going to do about this?" And he said, "If Russia invades, we will take it out." The journalist said, "But that's led by Germany. How can you take out the Nord Stream pipeline?" And Biden, I'm quoting him, says, "We have ways to do that, and we can take it out." And so that's festering right now in the media, and potentially on its way to becoming a mainstream story, that Biden could be the saber rattling hawk involved in a lot of, let's say, baggage that doesn't seem to put him in a good position to run successfully in 2024. So I'm watching for that. I know the counter to that is who else would be in a better position, but the Democrats are going to have to scramble to find somebody if the signals through the mainstream media are coming out already attacking Biden. So that's my.
Well, you're never going to get an argument from me on Cy Hirsch. I've been following him since I was a teenager, and he is an icon. If Cy Hirsch has that, you sent me that article, and I have yet to read it entirely. I started it. So the the issue is who for the Republicans. I agree with you. Right now, Biden's approval numbers are higher. They're in the 45, 46 range just for this week. Still averaging over the longer haul 44 plus. Those are better than they've been. However, you're right. When he's matched up against either Trump or DeSantis, it's tied, give or take 1 point or one way or another. But something very interesting about a Republican poll that I saw is that when Nikki Haley is added into the mix, she gets double digits.
Yes.
Now, that is not insignificant when you're talking about guys who are in the high 30s, low 40s. Somebody brand new who had just announced is in double digits, and it appears has a huge impact on DeSantis and could hurt DeSantis's chances. I've got to say that by all accounts, Nikki Haley's a good campaigner. So we've got to start looking at her and taking her pretty seriously too. I still have, and it's a hunch only, I'm not sure we're going to have enough time to talk about it today. I have a sense that Ron DeSantis could be the flavor of the year, and that perhaps he's peaked too soon. And a lot of that, let's just suggest it now. We ought to pick it up, in another podcast, that he's taking on education right now, which was a hot issue, right? In 2021, hot issue for him in 2022. And as he's taking on education, he's taking on the cultural issues that go with it: LGBTQ rights, critical race theory, the rights of parents in helping or determining what is to be taught in schools. That is real red meat for conservative and some suburban mom voters. The issue is Florida the right place to do it? And I don't think that Joe Biden would have sent himself down to Florida, where, hey, the Democratic Party is in very bad shape right now. But I don't think he would have sent himself down to Florida if he didn't think that he may be on a track to help the Democratic Party build itself back up again. What do you think?
Well, he had to because their chairman left, and we both
in a
read
scathing letter too. In a scathing letter.
Yes, and it's clear from that letter the party's in disarray. So, and look, Florida was the biggest winner of 2022. So, I mean, let me go back to Nikki Haley. I think that, Nikki Haley, that's interesting because to me, what that signals is you've got two firebrands, right? Trump and DeSantis. And not to say that Nikki Haley can't be a firebrand herself, but I think that if I were to guess, that's appeal from those older than 60 or older than 65, that here's an established figure, a governor, and a UN diplomat who doesn't go down rabbit holes. And so I think that support is coming from, if I were to guess, or I haven't seen the data, that would be coming from an older crowd who think maybe Trump and DeSantis is a little too much for them, or are getting tired of all the firebrand politics. I shouldn't dismiss her, but I have a hard time seeing her climb the ranks as time goes on. But I'm going to keep watching that. Now, back to Biden going to Florida. I don't think he has any other choice. That signals the Democrats in Florida. You got to get yourself together. You got to figure something out. I'm coming to town, and get over your loss. Get back on the horse, and find a way into those issues. Find some success. But it's going to be very difficult for the Democrats because they have dug their heels into the grounds with a lot of their issues, in terms of whether it's education or whether it's the economy. They're really just going to have to rethink their whole game and think about how they can get independents, first their own base, and then independents fired up for them. And I don't know that it's going to be successful to say, look at the crazies on the other side.
Well, last word, if I could, I think abortion, which was loud and clear in 2022, that issue not only doesn't go away, but this is the big kahuna, and it'll be the big kahuna in 2024, among other things. So that's all I've got. I think this was a good one. My assignment for me is to look at those crosstabs on Nikki Haley and see where she's getting her support, whether or not it helps to be a woman and a woman of color. She could very well be trying out for the ticket as a vice presidential nominee.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Good one. I'll see you 100 times before next week, but I'll see you next week. Take care.
Yep. You got it. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.